deep soak. A really, really deep soak. You might need to get the hose dripping and leave it on for 4 or 5 or 6 hours. So really good deep. So cultivation around the base, soil wetter, and you don't want any grass or weeds around the base. Soil wetter, and then while you're doing it, chuck on a bit of Osmocote too, get a bit of feed in there, and then a really good deep soak.
Amazing. And just for all the new people that have come in and the new platforms have joined, sorry, we were just having some technical difficulties before and just struggling to get on the other platforms. But hopefully it should all be working perfectly now. If you can't hear us quite right or something like that, please just comment below. But please feel free to share all your questions now on all the other platforms, and I will give them to Chris. And yeah, we'll keep this show going. So next question is what to plant around a pool for privacy?
Right, okay. I think weeping lily pillies, if it's nice and sunny, I would go for a weeping lily pilly, because weeping lily pillies have that luscious they've got luscious green weeping, thick, full, green foliage. So it feels sort of tropical and nice. It's, makes your pool feel like a bit of a getaway. But in terms of creating privacy, if you buy the nice size ones that are say around 1.5 meters tall, and you absolutely flood them once a week during the warm weather, chuck Osmocote on them regularly, give them a couple of more squirts through the week so they get one big wet and then a couple of little wets right through the week. They'll feel like they're up there in Cairns where they come from, and it's the wet season's on and it's time to grow. And you can grow, if you buy a little tube, it won't do it, but if you get a decent sized good plant it properly and do the watering and fertilising, and absolutely flood it once a week, you can grow them 1.5 meters a year. So if you buy one that's 1.5 meters tall and you do that watering and fertilising, you can have it 3 meters in a year, 4.5 meters in 2 years, and at some point you start chopping the top off it, and when you hit the size you want, you can back off on the watering. But basically, 1, 2 or 3 years, depending on how tall a screen you need for privacy, and it's job done. But they do love the sun. So if it was shady, I would more be looking at a sweet viburnum or something like that.
Perfect. Lockie would like to know if you sell any mosses.
Actually, yes and no. We should actually get someone to bring across some of our Irish moss and our we'll show it here now, Irish moss and our lime lava. Because what it is, we sell fake mosses. Like a lot of mosses that take so much water and they won't grow, and they grow in the shade and not the sun. And we've got a range. Could I just snip over and just grab a couple and show them?
So Chris is just going to go grab a couple now just to show you in person exactly what he's talking about. But just keep commenting your questions below and I will be...
These are called Irish moss.
So you can see there, the two little ones, they're very beautiful, and like Chris was saying, they grow in the sun, which is really handy because quite a lot of mosses grow in the shade, and these ones aren't such a high effort.
This one is called lime lava. Can we see that okay on the screen? Yeah, so this one's called lime lava. That spreads out like crazy. It gives a beautiful little mossy effect, but it very quickly becomes quite big, and children come in and you see them patting them. They're the most beautiful green finish on them. And these ones here, you've got a golden one and a green one. These are only baby ones here, but they'll also become beautiful big masses. Now what you can do is you can make modern gardens, Japanese style gardens, all sorts of gardens, get that beautiful mossy look, but you can do it in the sun. These ones all love the sun. This one here would do half day sun, half day shade. This one here really wants to be out in the sun pretty much all day, but does beautiful out in the sun. But nothing gives you that mossy look. But real moss, I must be honest, I don't sell real moss, but we do. These three plants here would be some of the most popular plants in our nursery because they give people that mossy effect from a modern garden, a Japanese garden, all sorts of gardens. Native gardens, all sorts of gardens these are great for, and really, really popular in the nursery, and there's that mossy effect for you.
Perfect. All right, next one is from Kev, saying they've had some success sowing bulbs inside perennials such as hostas by dividing the hosta into pie shapes and inserting bulbs between the wedges. Any experience with this?
Yeah, actually, when I was a kid, we used to a flower farm, and we used to scoop daffodil bulbs. We'd scoop the bottom out of them, and you'd get a great big fat daffodil bulb, and you'd scoop the bottom out of it and replant it. Next year when you dug it up, it'd become 6 or 7 bulbs. So a lot of bulbs can be stimulated by cutting them, scooping them. They can be stimulated into multiplying.
Incredible.
So I guess you'd look at the types of bulbs that you've got. But my dad started off with just a few boxes of daffodil bulbs and grew daffodils for about 10 years. And when he was finished, he had truckloads and truckloads of bulbs, and he would scoop those big bulbs when he was replanting.
Amazing. And just going to follow up on Lockie's question from before about the moss. He says they're for terrariums. Would I be able to break them apart and plant them in smaller quantities?
These ones here break apart very, very easily. This one here is more difficult. They propagate these ones in hothouses. But these ones here, your not lime lavas, your Irish mosses, the golden green, you could get those and just chop them into 4, or if you get a bigger plant, you chop it into more pieces and multiply them, no worries.
Yeah, perfect. All right, Britt would like to know the best privacy tree for fence line with 700 millimeter wide plant bed.
Right, so he's got a 700 millimeter wide bed, and I guess the sort of questions, if somebody came in the nursery and asked me for that, I'd be saying, is it sunny or shady? That'd be the first thing I'd say. But let's answer it.
And they asked with the question mark, pine.
Right, okay. So you could 700 meters wide.
Sunny.
Sunny, okay. So sunny, 700 millimeters wide. Look, the first thing that comes to my mind would be, say if it's sunny, you could use like if you want to use a pine, a blue arrow would be fabulous in that situation, because it's colourful and it's narrow and it loves a trim, and it could easily be kept inside that. But things that come to my mind would be like the there's a thing that we sell here called a sky pencil, and sky pencil, it's a kind of a very, it's like a pencil pine, but with an English box style leaf on it, but a nice glossy lush green English style, like English box style leaf, and it grows really skinny. It grows about 3 meters tall and grows about 50 or 60 centimeters wide. So really great in a narrow spot like that. Going to involve you in very, very little maintenance. But then you could also use like a lily pilly. Lily pillies can be kept and trimmed really, really nicely. So if you were to use something like a what's it called? A fire screen lily pilly. That is a naturally sort of tall, narrow-growing lily pilly, and keep it nicely trimmed. You could easily keep it within that 60 or 70 centimetre boundary, and it would go up quite quickly and make a beautiful, hardy, thick windbreak. And you'd plant them maybe 70, 80 centimetres apart. When I do narrow, when I go in a narrow bed, I tend to plant them closer so you can cut them harder. And but something like a fire screen lily pilly would be excellent for that. And actually, they're one that we've got available fairly economically in the nursery at the moment, so you can afford to plant lots of them quite easily, and they're a good, fast, hardy plant.
Perfect. Wendy would like to know, can the Hebe Santa Monica be planted in full sun coastal area, South Australia?
Yes, as long as you're not too coastal, like if you're right on the beachfront, or in a spot where you're being salt affected, where you've got salt whipping over you or something like that. But if you're back a few hundred meters from the beach and there's houses and bushes and flowers between you and the beach, and one of the tests that I always think when I'm thinking beachfront, if the roses are all thriving, it's not too salty for most other plants. So if you see roses, so if you're in a spot where there's just 0 roses in any of the gardens, you're probably a bit close to the beach. But if you came back to where the roses are thriving and you've got trees and houses and things between you and the water, that'd be fine.
Okay, perfect. Samantha is wanting to do a cottage garden. Are there compact daisies and lavender plants? I am in Perth.
Yeah, look, there's a really good range of Marguerite daisies out now. It's hard to get plants from Melbourne, but there's a really good range of really miniature Marguerite daisies that flower for a real lot of the year. And I'd go to a good nursery and look at that. And then really, I've never seen more little dwarf lavenders around than what we've got at the moment. There's your traditional ones like your Hitcoat and your Munster, which are still very, very good, but there's lots of little miniature ones available at the moment too. So really you could do lovely little Marguerite daisies, and they flower autumn, winter and springtime, and beautiful lavenders. And by buying different lavenders, I noticed like a great winter flowering lavender is your French, and I noticed that there's a miniature French one on the market now. So that could be a really good thing for winter colour. So yeah, there's plenty around at the moment.
Perfect. Next one is 200 millimeter pot of Bangalow palms recently planted north, aspect full sun, fronds are floppy, and there's cracked brown spots.
You know, I wonder where you are. Those Bangalow palms are grown like in very sheltered spots, and when you bring them down, and Melbourne is probably hotter than Queensland in summer, so if you bring them down from up north, like we have more savage, well, maybe it's not hotter, our heat is more savage, I think, more dry and more humid, and so a Bangalow palm.
Sydney.
What's that?
Southern Sydney. But
yeah, even so, a Bangalow palm coming out of a hothouse or a shade house or something like that and going out in the hot sun, that could be a bit much for it. I tend to only really encourage people to plant Bangalow palms in very sheltered areas, like in Melbourne and probably for Sydney as well. Like you really want to plant them in shelter, and putting them out as a kind of like a pioneer in a hot, windswept spot is probably a little bit dangerous. I'd be tempted to grab that Bangalow palm, pull it up, put it in a 10-inch pot, put it back in a 10-inch pot, put it in a sheltered corner, out of the hot afternoon sun, out of the hot winds, keep it well watered, bit of fertilizer, and see if you can get it to recover. I'd say it's copped a bit of a shock and maybe dried out a little bit.
Yeah.
So and you might even start off by soaking it, getting something like some sea salt and putting it, a highly diluted bit into a bucket of water, and soak it in the bucket of water for half a day or an evening or something like that, a night, and then repot it and then put it in a nice sheltered spot and get it to recover.
Amazing.
And there are much hardier, like here in Melbourne, when people come in and when they're from the outer suburbs, and I know they're planting it in a bare spot, I'll tend to use Washington palm, I'll use dwarf date palm, I'll use ponytail palm, I'll use lots of different palms, and it's more somebody, if they're in a city, established garden, other trees and plants and things like that, know what they're doing, that'd be the people who I'd sell a Bangalow palm to.
Yeah, amazing. All right, next one is any tricks to increase fragrance in roses? I've heard tomato juice and or coffee grinds.
What's that?
Increasing fragrance in roses, and they're saying they've heard about tomato juice or coffee grinds.
I would just simply check my pH. An optimum pH for roses would be around 6 or 6.5, and possibly a little bit of dolomite lime, and then it would really be hard to beat using a bit of Osmocote. So a good complete, and they actually have, Osmocote actually has a rose food, so a good complete fertilizer. As long as you've got adequate pH there, you should get the very best fragrance.
Perfect. Next person would like to know if you know any safe plants for geese to be around. Just asking if you know with this emoji. I'm just acting it out behind camera for Chris.
Right, okay. Right, so safe plants for geese. One of my neighbours used to keep a big flock of geese, and he just had them grazing on, and my grandmother used to keep them too, and they just have them grazing on the grass. And around those areas there was gardens, and the geese seemed to look after themselves. I think they like what geese seem to like is a nice lush lawn to forage on, and I think they can sort themselves out really.
Perfect. All right.
I've never seen geese are very hard to get them to keel over. So.
All right. Next question is from Alana. What is the best grass to grow in a mostly shaded spot?
We've done really well at our house with kikuyu. The dogs denuded our backyard, and what my partner did was she fenced off areas and she did little areas of kikuyu, and we it turned into a beautiful garden, or a beautiful lawn in no time. And Kikuyu seems to be particularly good in the shade.
Amazing. Eric would like to know if they can plant Banksia birthday candles together with lava lime. Live lava.
I reckon you could. I reckon as long as not, they both love a sunny spot. They both love lovely loose soil. So if it's hard clay or something like that, dig a nice big hole, mix a bit of potting mix through it, and you should be fine. So nice loose soil, full sun, lime lava, and birthday candles, great companion.
Great. Gaz would like to know your thoughts on using only Coprosma varieties for layering garden beds.
I think you could do that. And actually, I'm bringing back into production. There was the first Coprosma that went big on the market was actually one called Kirkeye, which is very fine foliage and green, and you can keep that really, really low. And so you might look at Kirkeye as a starter upper, and then work your way back. And what would be great about that is you've got like lemon lime. So with Kirkeye you've got a green, and it's a lovely luscious green, fine foliage. I really like it. And it went right out of production, but I found an old factory with an old garden of it out the front, and I've been propagating from that. And then you've got your lime lava, and then you've got something like a Caro red. So you could have like a lemony green, then you could have a deep purple. Then you could go behind that. What could be nice would be a what's it called? It's called night something night. But there you've got without going to the expensive PBR ones, there's a really nice multicoloured one. So, and even another small one. There's a pink fine foliage one that's been around for years. So you've got really great colours, and if you worked it well, you could have different heights, different textures in the foliage, and different colours. So great for layering, and really Coprosmas are beautiful plants, and you can clip them like an English box. Easy to grow, fast to grow. But I reckon they're as tough as a cactus. They're really, really tough. And also, like we've mentioned close to the beach before, I've noticed down on the Great Ocean Road, some areas where there's almost no other ornamental plants growing close to the beach, and you'll see Coprosmas thriving.
Perfect. Cece would like your suggestions for a small flowering bird-attracting tree for full sun.
Right. We just mentioned the birthday candles. Now, birthday candles is a tiny, tiny, tiny tree. Like it naturally only grows probably 1/2 metre tall, but we're actually getting a few in, and they're going to be about 1.8 metres tall. They've been grafted up high where it's on an actual head. But also, what you'll find here is that we've got quite a lot. Now, I was going to do a bit of a feature on it soon. We've got quite a lot of things like grevilleas, and that ground cover grevilleas grafted up on 1.5 metre stems, and so you can actually have little tiny bird attracting trees, and we've also got acacias grafted up on 1.5 metre stems. So you've got acacias, birds love them. You've got grevilleas, birds love them, and we're going to have birthday candles in here as a standard. But with the birthday candles, I think we're only going to get like 9 or 10 plants, so not many. It's a real. I just got them in because it was just a fabulously rare and wonderful thing.
Amazing. Wendy would like to know if a dwarf callistemon can be planted in north-facing exposed aspect.
Dwarf callistemon. Yeah. I think a dwarf callistemon is one of the world's toughest trees. And the one that I like is Little John. Little John, luscious green foliage, bright red, little sort of tiny bottle brushes all over it, and sort of a predominance of lovely bright green, and not as sort of needly looking as most of them, sort of lusher and leafier. And they only grow about 1.2 metres tall, 1.2 metres tall, maybe 90 centimetres wide. Beautiful little plant. Like I did a garden design yesterday, and I ran them up the sides of the driveway, and I thought that'd be a really nice. The chap wanted a very small tree, and we used that. So Little John callistemon would be my favourite small callistemon.
Amazing. Next person would like tips for their gardenias as they are trying to propagate it.
I reckon that what you might try is before people had, like, the people with hothouses and all the chemicals and everything like that propagate gardenias very, very easily. But for the home gardener, it's a little bit more difficult. And what I reckon I would do is get a little bit of hormone, and I would do a shallow wound, just through the cambium layer, and I'd put a bit of hormone on there, a bit of indole butyric acid, a fairly mild one. And then what I would do is I'd take that branch and I'd lower it into a pot and put a bit of soil over it and actually layer it. And I think for a home gardener, the layering of a gardenia would be much more likely to succeed than a cutting. And then if you want your gardenias to thrive, Osmocote make a fertilizer called Osmocote liquid fertilizer for acid-loving plants, and I've seen it almost bring gardenias back from the dead. But I've seen very average gardenias thriving in no time with that. So it's Osmocote liquid fertilizer for acid-loving plants. And if you combine that with the layering idea, but you could look up layering on the internet. It's an old-fashioned practice. I remember people used to do it on plants when I was a little kid, but you don't see it much anymore.
Amazing. All right, Lou has 2 questions. First question is thoughts on Sir Walter.
What my thought always about Sir Walter is that I remember when I was a kid, I'd go to my uncle's place, and where there was, in my family we had 3 boys, and in their family they had 3 boys, and in no time at all we'd be out in the back lawn wrestling and fighting, play fighting of course, and what I used to love at our house, when we had just ordinary sort of grass, and when we were fighting you'd hit the ground and it was quite hard, it hurt. And at my uncle's place you'd hit the ground and it was buffalo grass. I don't know if it was Sir Walter back in those days, but I don't think it was, but it was buffalo grass, and it felt fabulous when you hit it, compared to particularly if you had a big heavy boy on top of you and you hit the ground. I love the softness of it, and I've always thought it's a great thing for kids to play on. But it's it's lovely to walk on. I love that lovely thick feel. It's a very, very hardy, really, really hardy one. In Melbourne, looks a bit dismal right in the dead of winter. But as soon as it warms up, whack it with a bit of fertilizer, and the thing is that a well cared for Sir Walter buffalo lawn will last you forever. And the most common fault I see with that is that people get sick of mowing the lawn. And then what they do is that they think, if I mow it real short this week, I could skip mowing for a couple of weeks. And what they do is they kind of bruise it and make holes and patches and things in it, and weeds seem to get going in those areas. And so the degeneration of those Sir Walter lawns, I reckon, is what you want to do with if you've got one of those. You want to, like in the warm weather, water it, fertilise it, and mow it every week or 10 days, and never cut it too short, because you do injure the lawn when you cut it real short. And that's where people mess their lawn up, by cutting it too short and not cutting it often enough.
Amazing. Next question is, are dwarf peach trees worth getting? I love peaches but don't have space for a big tree.
Okay. What you'll find is that if you go to the nursery, you'll find what's called a super dwarf, and the super dwarfs have been around for a long, long time, and they only grow about 1.5 meters tall. Now they are good if you say you had a balcony, or you're in an apartment, you're on a balcony, you want to have a fruit tree, super dwarf, fabulous. But for a normal garden, I don't ever recommend the super dwarf. There's actual dwarf ones, and they grow. You can prune them a bit, and you could keep. If you never prune it, it's probably going to end up 2.5 to 3 meters tall. But if you prune it a bit, you could keep it to 1.8 or 2 meters tall. And those ones are just as productive as or possibly even more productive than your normal ones you'd find in an orchard. So super dwarf, if you're looking to keep something in a pot forever on a balcony or in a courtyard or something like that, very attractive, nice blossom, nice fruit, nice leaves. But a normal dwarf, and with the normal dwarf you can get all the normal varieties, and because what makes them dwarf isn't the top bit, it's the bottom bit. So what happens is that the nurserymen growing them get a dwarfing understock, and then they graft it, so you can get your standard varieties in a dwarf, and we've got quite a range of them here at the moment, of the we've got the super dwarfs, and we've got the normal dwarfs, which are your bigger dwarfs.
Amazing. James would like to know your thoughts on frangipanis in Melbourne, potted frangipanis.
Okay, so I guess what we're talking about is your tropical frangipani, and in terms of old tropical frangipanis, the only ones I've ever seen really doing well in Melbourne are the white ones with the yellow centre. So whether I was growing it in a garden or growing it in a pot, I would go for a white one with a yellow centre in Melbourne, because I've seen fabulous examples of that, and I've seen no examples of any other colours doing really well as old trees. So I would go for the white one with the yellow centre. It seems to be hardier and more adapted to our cooler climate. And then where I've seen them doing really, really well is in a spot where you're out of the cold winds, and it's like a little sun trap, a little sun pocket. Like often there'll be houses that have rooms in and out, and there's sort of some walls and brick walls reflecting heat and things like that. And just that, you get that right spot, and I've seen absolutely magnificent frangipanis. Frangipanis as good as what I've seen in northern New South Wales or Queensland. So find that right spot, and it wouldn't matter whether you grew it in a pot or in the garden. Find that right spot. And I guess if you're in the wrong spot, say you lived in Trentham or somewhere like that, and that's not the spot for growing tropical frangipani. I had a friend kept I gave him the frangipani, and he kept it nice for years. And what he would do in a pot, and he lived up in the Dandenongs, which is cold and wet in the winter, and he'd bring it into his sunroom for the winter when it was, and so that would stop it from dying off in the winter time. So I guess the pot would be good for a person who lives in the spot where the winter's too severe for a frangipani. So you can bring it in for the winter. And a friend of mine did that and kept his frangipani nice for years.
Amazing. I just want to quickly acknowledge one of the comments before I move on to the next question, saying you need your own TikTok or YouTube. Your knowledge has helped so many generations, which is an amazing compliment. Thank you so much. But I mean, we do have the Hello Hello Plants TikTok. I assume you mean Chris having his very own TikTok, but we do use that channel to post content every day that's educational and inspirational. We'll do everything from like compact trees to like beautiful flowers in summer to amazing garden designs. Like all sorts of content is coming out every day. So if you're not already following us on TikTok or any of the other platforms, you definitely should, because that is another way that we are trying to educate people to have the best garden they possibly could. I just wanted to acknowledge that comment. Thank you so much. And got another one asking for hiring. I thought that might be another good one to also ask quickly.
Yeah, look, we do hire plants. We have like I think over 100,000 plants in stock every day here, and if you were to talk to one of my sales staff and say, look, I'm having an event on such and such a day, and we work out delivery and pick up.
No. Are you hiring like jobs?
Oh, hiring jobs. I think hiring plants. No, hiring jobs. Yes, we're actually looking for sales staff at the moment. And I'm also looking for someone to help me with my garden designs. And what I need there is I need somebody who is really good with computers and technology, and interested in horticulture, and interested in doing gardens, and interested in working with people. And then we have. With sales, we're looking for people that are interested in horticulture, not necessarily good at horticulture, educated, but interested, want to be immersed and involved in plants, but really interested in talking to people and helping them solve their gardening needs. So we're hiring both people for the garden design area and people for sales.
Amazing. All right. We only have time for one more question today.
I think we should do two more because of our technical glitches.
Yeah, we could do two more questions. Yeah. But I just want to quickly remind people we do this live every Monday, 12 p.m. Normally we are always on time. We just had some technical issues today. That is the beauty with the live. Obviously the issues are live as well. So we'll go to the second last question, which is, I have a weeping cherry, but the top branches aren't weeping. They're growing straight up. What should I do?
Okay, what you do is what you've got to do is understand how weeping cherries come to be. And what it is that they grow what's called an understock cherry, and that's a cherry that likes to grow upwards. And they grow him and they trim him to one shoot, and they grow him in the field, and he shoots up maybe 2 meters tall, and then they graft on the weeping cherry. They graft a bud on the weeping cherry, and then that grows and hangs down. Now what can happen is that from below that weeping cherry, a shoot can form, and it can shoot up through the head. So what this is what I tell people to do. So what you've probably got there is you've got some weeping branches, and then on the top you've got some upward branches, and the upward branches are not what you want. If they're straight upward branches, and you'll notice normally they'll have a different textured foliage on them, what you do is you get your finger and you look up under that head there, and what you see is you see the weeping branches, and you see the weeping branches come into a central area, and then you'll normally see a graft. You can actually see where it was cut and shaped years ago, and then run your finger down, and then beneath the graft you should see some shoots coming out, and they're the shoots that form the vertical ones that come up through the head. And what you do is you find those shoots, and then you neatly cut them back level with the trunk. So you need a good powerful pair of secateurs and a nice clean cut, and cut them back level with the trunk.
Perfect. All right. Last question. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to see where I was up to before. We also just got quickly asked where can they apply for stuff. Do we still have that blog still count that I wrote quite a while back?
We have a section about applying for work at Hello Hello. Let's have a look at it. Let's find it.
Yeah, it's the blog that I wrote, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure that one still would be relevant. I'll just quickly link it in the comments. Yeah, that we're hiring. But also, if you do just go to the Hello Hello website, you go to Chris's blog and you type in hiring in the search function, that should also navigate you there for anyone else who is wanting to also come work for us. All right. The last real question will be, is it a good time to plant roses now?
It is actually, and what it is that the next month or 6 weeks is a great time for choosing your roses, because like I was helping a couple buy some roses the other day, and a lot of the roses are in flower now, and you can smell them and you can see them. And whereas in wintertime, the problem is that the roses are just like sticks, and they've got labels on them, and the labels are not always accurate, like in terms of color or shape of the flower, or whether they're fragrant or not. But the most accurate thing is to go and have a look at the roses and say, oh, well, I like that color, and then take them home and plant them. And as long as you plant, dig a nice big hole, mix in some fertilizer and some soil wetter and some potting mix, do a good job, and they take and grow beautifully. And then by planting them this time of year, you'll have a fabulous show next spring, because they'll be well established by next spring. So great time to choose roses, and great time to plant roses.
Perfect. All right. Well, that is a wrap for today then. We hopefully will see you again next Monday. We'd love it if you could tell any loved ones, any friends or family or neighbours about these lives. We are trying to reach as many people as we can, to help as many people as we can, because we want more beautiful gardens in Victoria and just in the world, worldwide, really. So we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll see you next Monday.